Hello, Kyle here. I am going to give a bit of a review of X-Men the Animated Series from the 90s. I decided to watch this entire series about a couple of years ago, I'd say, around the time I think that Disney Plus really started going, because I think it may have been before the pandemic, and I was just curious at what this show was like because a lot of people in the general comic book movie and comic book fandom praise X-Men the Animated Series. X-Men the Animated Series is actually one of the rare shows I never watched as a child because I watched the Spider-Man animated series, I watched a little of the Hulk animated series they did, and I saw a couple of the other ones. I think I may have seen an Iron Man episode, and X-Men, for some reason, I was, as a child, not into the X-Men. I thought the X-Men were stupid. I did not like Wolverine. I thought he looked like a stupid character. I liked all superheroes, except for the X-Men. And I think it had to do with the fact that I just didn't know about the X-Men. And the fact that I didn't know about the X-Men made me not like them. And it was always because whenever I would either get toys of Marvel characters or get books of Marvel characters, it'd always be like Fantastic Four I would love, Spider-Man I would love, Hulk I would love, but then the X-Men would be there and I'm like, I don't know who these people are. It wasn't until I saw the film, specifically X-Men First Class, that I really became a huge fan of the X-Men. And then I have become a fan since. I've watched all the movies. I've read a bunch of the comics. So I decided to go back and watch this animated series. And I was watching it for about a year or so, and then I stopped, and I found out they're doing a revival sequel series called X-Men 97, and it made me go back and try and finish it. And I really finished a bunch of episodes this past week because this weekend we're going to get information on X-Men 97 and the series that is going to follow this one. So overall, what were my thoughts on X-Men the Animated Series? I liked it. I liked it a ton. I thought the show was beautifully animated, at times wonderfully written, and I think the biggest takeaway were just the characters in the show, because animation exists for many reasons, but one of the things that keeps animation going are the characters that are being told in animation. And I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine yesterday about how sometimes you see these animated movies these days and the characters do not come first. The animation comes first. And that sometimes is a disappointment, because if you go back to just even the bare bones of animation, it revolved around even like a Mickey Mouse, where you had the character. It wasn't more so about the animation itself, but you had a character like a Bugs Bunny or a Daffy Duck that you, as a viewer, somewhat connected with. And in the case of X-Men, all the characters are terrific. Like, I was more struck by the characters I didn't really expect from, like Gambit. Gambit's a character I'm not too familiar with outside of the one movie appearance in X-Men Origins Wolverine that Taylor Kitsch played. And I was looking forward to the Channing Tatum movie, but we still have not gotten that yet. Maybe we'll get it, fingers crossed, one day. But I really loved Gambit in this series. He was a charming and funny character. And my favorite part of this series was the relationship between Gambit and Rogue. They're like on and off again type banter they would have, somewhat like a Fred Astaire, Ginger Rogers, I believe, relationship. It was really, I think, cute and adorable, and I really love seeing Rogue be completely different from what I know her in the movies, because this Rogue can fly, she has super strength, she's much older than Anna Paquin's Rogue from the films, which I did love, but it's crazy how different I think this Rogue character is. Aside from being Southern and having, the same power of touch, she was a very different character. A bunch of the characters were also in a way different. Like Storm, in the movie, Storm was kind of like, for some reason, put on the back burner. Like, she wasn't really as prominent in the films as, say, a Wolverine, even a Jean Grey. But Halle Berry was so good, she was perfectly cast as Storm. I think you kind of forgot how, little she was given in those films. But in here, Storm is in it and she has her stuff to do, but she's a bit of a different character the way she acts. And Beast is also very different from what I've seen before. I think the most similar in a way is Wolverine, because he is just as rugged as Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. But I think that all these characters I really grew attached to, and by the time we get to the final episode, you get emotionally, connected to the story. I think that some episodes, specifically in this last season, season 5, some of them just I didn't really feel were that necessary, because there was this one episode where it revolved around Jubilee telling a bunch of mutant children about like a fairy tale. And I can see for children watching that might be a fun episode, but not only did it not matter narrative wise, but it kind of didn't even feel like it was an X-Men episode. Another episode dealt with Captain America and fighting in Nazi Germany, and that also did not feel like an X-Men episode. It felt like a Captain America TV series, maybe a backdoor pilot for a Captain America TV series. But some of my favorite episodes, there was one episode revolving around Mr. Sinister and his backstory. There was another episode that kind of revolved around Rogue. There were a couple episodes that I loved that revolved around Rogue and her issues with not being able to touch people. There was some great episodes with Wolverine and Weapon X, and I could see how that probably influenced some of the storylines in X-Men Origins Wolverine. Though, because this is an animated series adapted from the comics, I could assume some of the storylines are comic-based stories. One of the biggest, arcs in this series I thought that was interesting was the Dark Phoenix arc, because this is something that I've been told that it is the best version of the Dark Phoenix storyline that the movies never could accomplish. And it's quite crazy when you watch it, because I read the Dark Phoenix comics and the saga, but I thought it's just watching it visually, it's crazy how they did not do what they did in the movies, because they still, in this storyline, they stayed faithful and true to the adaptation, and they had a bunch of interplanetary situations with the Shi'ar Empire, and the Shi'ar Empire became a major role in this series. But it was still a well-told storyline in this series. There was another great storyline revolving around the Days of Future Past that was fun to watch. There was an interesting thing about Mystique that I never quite knew from the comics, revolving around her and Rogue. There was a whole bunch of stuff here that was really engaging, and I can totally see why kids that grew up around the 90s, they grew attached to this show. And it's kind of coincidental, I guess, that they kind of used that series as a way to make the X-Men popular in the pop culture zeitgeist, and then have the X-Men movies come out after that. And now we are at a point where we're going to probably get X-Men movies in the near future, so they are reintroducing this animated series to a new audience on Disney Plus, and then that will hopefully instill more X-Men love by the public, which was a brilliant decision. I cannot wait for X-Men 97. I really hope that they go into other storylines, whether they go into the New Mutants, whether they go into Age of Apocalypse, whether they go into even more recent storylines revolving around X-23 and Deadpool. I think that could be a lot of interesting material for them to go into in the sequel series. I'm also curious to see how the animation will look, because the animation changed significantly from season 4 to 5. And I really love the animation from seasons 1 to 4. So I'm hoping they keep the animation from seasons 1 to 4, but they probably will update it, and it'll probably look even more different from season 5, which is no issue. As long as they have the same writers, or at least the same executive producers, and as long as they have the same voice cast, because the voice cast in here were phenomenal. But yeah, like, I don't know if anyone watching this has even seen the X-Men animated series, but if you really want to get into the X-Men animated series, I highly recommend it. It is basically the template for what they used in the movies for the X-Men, and it kind of spawned this animated verse on, I think, Fox Kids or something, with Spider-Man and I think an Iron Man series. They had a bunch of different animated series that kind of connected, because one Spider-Man episode featured the X-Men. So this was like the MCU before the MCU was a thing. So I am very curious to hear any of y'all's thoughts watching this. Are you excited for X-Men 97? Let me know. I might make a video, honestly, about Comic-Con news when we get it in a couple days regarding this upcoming series and whatever else, MCU related. So thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Bye.